Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Fan Sports New York. I'm your host, Frank Langella, joined again by my co-host, Marsilio Langella. Mars, big news on the New York sports front. Jets hiring a new coach. Nets making the big trade for James Harden, which we kind of saw coming for a while, but it got done. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is huge. Not to be disrespectful, but to your fandom, this is a big little brother news day. Yeah. Jets making moves, Nets making move. Knicks are where they are. We'll talk about them. Giants not much, but outside of that, but the Yankees did make some moves too. So we'll talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, listen, it's for any Jet fan out there. This is like one of those giddy, exciting news stories that you hear about. The fact that Adam Gase is not only fired, he's gone, but you hire a up and coming young coach that a lot of people are really looking high on, right? And we'll talk more about it, but it's a big news update, and I think a lot of Jets fans are kind of in that overly happy mood, which is very rare to find for Jets fans in general. So for me, it's a good thing. Now, granted, we don't know what's going to happen next, but all we do know is that we don't have Adam Gase anymore. We have someone brand new that has a lot of garnered respect around the league.
And it's bringing excitement, and we'll dive into that. But we want to welcome our fans. This is obviously... podcast has been going on for a while, but our second YouTube show. So we want to welcome everyone for listening in, tuning in, giving us your time. Hopefully we can talk some sports with you guys. And like always, if you guys want to follow us on Twitter, you can follow us at FamSportsNY. If you want to check out the website, FamSportsNY.com, obviously our YouTube channel, you can get access to everything on our website. So that's important. And we kind of talked about what we're going to discuss at the top. You know, the big thing is the Jets, and we'll start with the Jets. The Jets just hired their new coach, Robert Saleh. He was the defensive coordinator of the 49ers. We talked about him on the previous show. I was actually a little surprised. It wasn't one of my top candidates, but I don't think it's a bad hire. I mean, initially looking at it, we spoke about it, that the list of candidates, we felt much more, comfortable than a couple years ago when the Jets were looking who eventually hired Adam Gase. So I don't think it's a bad hire. I mean, if you look at when he first became defense coordinator, the 49ers were a horrifying defense. They improved each year to the point where they were number 2 in the league a couple years ago. And even last year, I know they're kind of like in the teens in points allowed, but they're, I think, 6th in expected points allowed. The amount of injuries that they suffered to their big-time players and still being a competitive defense speaks to the staff that they assembled in San Fran. And what really impressed me, Mars, is not just, I thought it was, the discussion was, do you go offense or defense? And it was funny because we were talking about it last time on the show that usually when a team fails, a coach fails, they usually go the opposite, right? So Adam Gase was an offensive guru. He kind of wasn't a good speaker, obviously.
Nope.
Wasn't good with the media. So what do? They got an exact opposite guy, defensive guy, high energy guy, and a guy who talks well in front of the media. So they did the 180 with Robert Saleh, and I just want to get your initial thoughts before we talk about the implications of this hire based on the staff and obviously the quarterback position.
Well, the fact is, you kind of took my point, is that they almost hired a complete opposite of what Adam Gase was. And I think that's something that is pretty damning on Adam Gase. It tells you that, we made a decision. It wasn't Joe Douglas, but it was obviously Chris Johnson, made a decision to hire this guy. And they were like, it kind of sucked, so we need to kind of revamp what we're looking for and do the exact opposite of Adam Gase, and maybe we probably would win one more games. And like you said, Robert Saleh is energetic, which is exactly the opposite of what Adam Gase. A very, very can be seen on the sidelines all the time. I think he was one of the. When you watch the 49ers games, you saw Shanahan, but you really saw Saleh all the time. They always pointed the camera at him, and he was always energetic. And a lot of times people would say, he's just one of those over-the-top, muscle-bound dudes just yelling. From every person that has talked about him, he is a quote-unquote intellectual. He is a person that is deep in the game, looks at all the X's and O's, all the different game planning, but on the field, he is very emotional. He's very high energy. And I think one thing that you didn't mention the difference between him and Adam Gase is that the swarming amount of player, recommendations and really applauding of the Jets hiring Saleh gives you a lot of sense of this guy. Because you had Adam Gase who left the job because the players ran him out of town, right, in Miami. And they were like, yeah, pick him up because they're divisional rivals. Yeah, go ahead, hire this guy and see how it works out because we don't like him here. And then Saleh, it's almost like they're begging him to stay. But once he got hired, every one of his players was like, the Jets got a steal here. He's a great guy. And I think a lot of people, I know this is not the NBA where head coaches are, head coach relationships with players is the biggest thing in NBA.
But it's really
it does play a role because now you're starting to see a lot of like star players and a lot of key players really want a coach that is there for them. And I feel like when the Jets were the most successful is when they had those player coaches. And I'm not saying that the coach should be best friends with the player. I'm not saying that. But, think of the last time the Jets were successful. Rex Ryan was a player coach, a guy that the players played hard for because they knew that he cared about their well-being. He wanted them to win. And I feel like Saleh, I'm not saying comparing, the Jets are going to go to the AFC Championship game or anything, but, I think the fact that the players are going to feel a deeper connection to this guy and that because he wants them to succeed, right? I think that's going to be the biggest thing the Jets are going to see when it comes to having Robert Saleh on the staff.
And, you made a great point in the huge difference from when he was hired. One, it was way more mixed when Adam Gase was hired, especially among the players. Like, there were players that are outspoken that he straight up stinks.
Yep.
You're a little more universal in the Robert Saleh field that all these players knew he would eventually be a head coach, number one. And number two, that he has a great respect. I mean, you listen to what Richard Sherman, said, his corner, he has garnered a lot of respect. And also, even in the media, okay, it was mixed with Adam Gase. I mean, we had to practically convince ourselves that it was a good hire. Everybody loves this hire. They really do. And it kind of makes me a little nervous when everybody loves it because usually, and I don't know why the reason, sometimes goes the opposite way.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be indicative of how successful so just because everyone loves it doesn't mean he's going to be a great head coach or that the Jets are going to be, competitive every year now. We hope, but that's not exactly what it means. Yeah. But the feel is so different from a couple years ago to now, just among Jet fans, media, players. They definitely did a better job. Was this my top choice? No. But I still think it's a solid hire. I could be wrong, but I still think it's a very solid hire. And it improved for me in the days ahead, not just because of Robert Saleh, but what they did on the staff. And that's what I found to be huge. And it was big. The offensive coordinator, they plucked from the 49ers, Mike LaFleur, okay, which was a big get. So he plucked him. He made him the offensive coordinator. They're going to be running a Shanahan-style offense. So the dynamic now is very different. So they did make some staff changes up to at least this morning. Yep. Okay, so Mike LaFleur, official. Offensive line coach, John Benton, which was the 49ers offensive line coach, which I think is an underrated, decision. The 49ers have had a good offensive line, and their staff has done a really good job of not just developing offensive linemen, but implementing a very sound run game. I mean, when you look at a Shanahan offense, you're always expecting a good run game, right? And good play action off it. So, I think it's a great hire. The QB coach, Greg Knapp, was the Falcons quarterback coach. They also had a passing game coordinator, right? So I want to say it's Rob Calabrese. So those are the ones we heard so far. There are still rumors about the defensive coordinator on the defensive side of the ball and stuff like that. But we got some important offensive staff hammered down, and Robert Saleh was able to pluck some 49ers guys off that staff, which was a very good staff.
Yep.
And that's what has impressed me. I don't know, how good Mike LaFleur is going to be. But based on what everyone is saying around the league this is another bright, young offensive mind who could potentially be a head coach candidate in the future. And I heard, some foolish things about people. Well, should we hire that kind of guy because he's going to be plucked in 2 years? You don't worry about that. No. You want the best coaches right now. And it seems like Saleh has put together, at least on the offensive side of the ball, a very solid staff. And that's what impressed me. If you're going to go defense or CEO, and that's what the Jets wanted.
Yeah, that was the thing I was going to say.
He's got to assemble a good staff, and this feels like a good start.
First off, I think that hiring Saleh I mean, before they even hired any coach, right? They're saying the right things. Chris Johnson, Joe Douglas are saying the right things. We're drifting away from having a coach that is just going to focus on one side of the ball because they want to do exactly the opposite of what Adam Gase was. He says, listen, defense, you do whatever the hell you want. I'm the offensive guy. We'll do it that way. It was almost like having two co-head coaches. And that's not what the Jets wanted. And that's not the way that any coach, any franchise should go forward with.
No.
So they wanted to go with a guy that is going to be like a game manager, a guy who's going to assemble a staff. And granted, Saleh might call the defense, but he'll at least assemble a staff of people and say he's going to oversee every aspect of this team rather than just say, I'm the defensive guy, that's it. Mike, you go ahead and run the offense. I'm not going to get in your way. No, I think he's going to play a different role. And like you said, I think offensively, they have a lot of good members on the staff so far. And listen, I say good because that's from everyone saying it's good. I don't know what's going to happen. But to address that your concern, especially if it comes from Jets fans and Jets media, that why would we want to hire a up and coming star as our offensive coordinator? He might get plucked in 2 years. He's not going to get plucked if he stinks. And if he gets plucked and to be a head coach, it means that our offense is rocking. In order for that to want. Except for the New York, and granted, the New York Jets put the lowest bar possible. So by being the 32nd offense two straight years in a row. But if we are a shining offense in the NFL, it means we're going to win a lot of games. And I'm glad that because our defense is clearly better than offense this year. And if our offense is really rocking under LaFleur, then the Jets are going to win games. Like we'll be a lot better team than we were before. And now that it comes into the concept of what do we do next? That's I'm sure that's the next big question is Sam Darnold.
Yes.
Like what are we going to do with Sam Darnold? And listen, you know me, I love Sam Darnold. I like him as a guy. First of all, great person. And as a player, I just think that he's been put in such horrible situations that it's really hard to tell if he has anything or not. And I think all the reports are saying that apparently the Jets staff really he has some hidden talent that he has yet to be shown because of how horrible these staffs were before him. And I could be completely wrong. I could be like, you know what? In my opinion, I don't think he has that, but maybe he does. And he shows out, he plays well. But then it goes into the same concept of the people that were ragging on any sort of trade for Deshaun Watson.
Well, you're diving into two big topics. Let's go with Sam Darnold.
So let's just say, right, in a Shanahan-style offense, when you look at how they run it, right, they were successful with Jimmy Garoppolo, who, let's be real, I know some people love the guy. He's not a ground-breaking quarterback, right? He is not that amazing. But the point is that the 49ers were a good team, when they went to the Super Bowl, right? And they had a lot of injuries, so it's hard to really tell how good they could have been this year. But to run the offense effectively, you just need a guy on par with Jimmy Garoppolo in his performance. Now, I'm not saying that that's what you should strive to be, but to say that the Jets, can't do that with Sam Darnold, I don't know. I think that's the only way Jets offense can be successful is if Sam Darnold can at least match what Jimmy Garoppolo does. If he does better, that means the Jets offense will be a lot better than what they were in San Fran.
Yeah, and this is the point that I'm going to make. Okay, you mentioned about can they be successful and what do you describe as successful with Sam Darnold, and I think they can have some forms of success if they build a team around him. But you just mentioned this biggest second part. What do you strive for? Now, the Jets have the second pick in the draft. So they have a big opportunity, and we're going to dive into the next elephant in the room, but let's just say that elephant doesn't exist. Okay? You have the second pick in the draft, and you have Lawrence is gone. Let's just throw that away. It's going to be over. Fields and Wilson. Okay? Now, I think Zach Wilson better fits the Shanahan offense than Fields because I believe Fields is a more RPO spread offense guy. And I think Wilson can maneuver better in the Shanahan offense than Fields. Doesn't mean either of them, Fields can't. But in my evaluation, I think that Wilson would be better suited there. Does a guy like Wilson or a guy like Fields give you a higher ceiling than Sam Darnold? Because Sam is going into year 4. Right? So, Sam's going into year 4. Next year, you got to pick up his 5th-year option. Or do you restart the clock with all this cap space and all these draft picks with the rookie deal, with the new rookie quarterback? That's the big question. Because if Zach Wilson is a higher ceiling than Sam, you have to make that pick because you can't go back when Deshaun Watson was getting drafted and Patrick Mahomes was getting drafted, and you went with Jamal Adams because he was the best player available. Right? If you have a problem at quarterback and you have the second overall pick, this could be your opportunity. Now, the thing about Sam, I hear what you said, and you see some of his talent on the field, right? When he rolls around, when he makes throws on the run, sometimes he delivers great balls. But the problem I have with Sam is he was put in a bad situation, really bad. But he was also 32nd in the league in passer rating, the worst in football. He was the worst in passer rating in football. And he was 30th in completion percentage with a clean pocket. Not in under duress, in a clean pocket. And that to me that's the one that really concerns me. Okay, because that talks about damaged goods. Right? If he's damaged goods and can't be repaired, why is this new coaching staff going to go through that to try all of a sudden if they stink next year and maybe the quarterback draft class is not that good next year? Now what? So now you're really put in a pickle, and that's why, to me, it comes down to, does either of those quarterbacks give you a better ceiling than Sam? Because if that is true, you got to take one of them. Not saying they're going to be great, but you have to take one of them. And that's where I am with this whole, what do you do with Sam? If not, then you roll with Sam. But just make, what if Sam plays somewhat better, but he's not that good, and you're now the 10th pick or 11th pick, and now you have to sell the farm to go up and get a quarterback who in a class that might not be that great. Now, so that's the concern I have.
Now, I understand that stat, or the clean pocket, but it also doesn't go into how horrible, first off, how wide open were these people, right? The Jets receivers are one of the worst in football, right? They're horrifyingly bad. They can't get open. And also, it doesn't go into what routes he was throwing into or anything like that, because when you look at Adam Gase's offense, they literally were throwing deep balls every other play, almost every play.
I don't know about that. I mean,
but that's the thing. I understand the concern. I also have to look at it and say, I have to see the plays themselves. And when I watch Sam Darnold under duress 90% of the time, and when he wasn't under duress, the routes were literally horrifying. As in these throws that he would have to make would be extremely, extremely impressive, to the point where it's like elite level type of throw sometimes.
Well, what do you get a third quarterback overall?
Now, this is my point, all right? When you look at what I think the Jets should do, all right, I would say you trade with the Falcons, right? And you say, well, why would you do that if you want to draft a quarterback? The Falcons are the 4th pick in the draft, all right? You trade back with the Falcons. I am gambling that Miami's not going to pick up a quarterback. That's what I'm gambling.
So you're... I don't understand that.
If you draft, because I think the Falcons are looking to draft Fields. All right, and if you're going to think that Zach Wilson is the guy, then you trade back. If someone picks up Zach Wilson, then that means that all these reports about how they really are high on Sam Darnold anyway, then it's not. It's like a consolation prize. You can then draft the best player available, which could be the top receiver in the draft at 4, and then you can build your roster around Sam Darnold with the rest of your picks, and you will get another pick from the Falcons. But if you rather would get Zach Wilson at 2 and not trade back and get more picks, you can also do that too. But my opinion is, I think that Sam Darnold, and I said this for a while, is that Sam Darnold's on a really horrible team and he's not good enough to carry the team. But if you were to develop a team around him, how would he perform? Right? If he's not the sole guy you have to rely on for everything, will he be a lot better than he is? That's the question you really have to answer. Because I feel like if he had a better team around him, he would play better. That's my opinion. And I think that's what, so far, reports. Now, granted, they could be lying out of their teeth about these reports.
I wouldn't take the reports too seriously.
No, but I'm just saying, let's just say that's true.
The staff just joined, and there's one quarterback who's on the roster, and they haven't evaluated the other quarterbacks that are coming into the draft. So I wouldn't take those, but I know what you're saying. Adam Schefter reported that he feels that the Jets are going to keep Sam Darnold.
Yeah, like I said, it could be lying.
I'm going to just tell you this. There is no way you trade back from 2 to 4 and draft a quarterback. That's stupid. Okay, we go into if you like a quarterback, you take him. You don't risk potentially Miami wanting to take quarterback or that the Falcons take the quarterback you want. You don't risk it. You just take him. If you're trading back, it means you're not taking a quarterback. It means you're taking the best player available. So I wouldn't do that if I'm looking for a quarterback. The other thing about Sam, I want to see him be successful because he has a lot of talent. But at some point, you need to see it put together. Like, you need to see evidence of it. And you have some video evidence, but there's also some really ugly video evidence too. Really ugly. I mean, he hasn't thrown 20 touchdowns yet so far in his career. Right? So, I mean, we were making fun of Josh Allen. Josh Allen exploded, and now he has way more talent. But at some point, you got to see something. You got to see something. Now, there could be this untapped potential. But I feel like coaches always do this where they see somebody, right, who has something there. And they always feel like I could bring the best out of that person. And it could happen. But he needs to do it. If it's not, like, there's no development time anymore. Sam has to explode in year 4. He needs to explode next year if you're going to keep him. Because if he doesn't, and one of these quarterbacks, Mars, Zach Wilson or Fields, is good, that's going to be terrible. A terrible start. It's going to be a terrible start. That's the problem. I don't bag on the Jets for not taking Josh Allen back in 2018 because no one really had Josh Allen as a top 2 quarterback. But if they don't take Zach Wilson or Justin Fields and keep Sam, and those 2 guys become good, and Sam stays on the trajectory that he is, that could be a major problem for Joe Douglas.
Well, here's the thing. When I look at Fields and I look at Zach Wilson, they were never really groundbreakers in college. Like, I think my opinion between the two of them, I like Zach Wilson more. Like, Fields comes off as a very inconsistently playing quarterback, especially in we had the big moment against Clemson. He rocked the house. Yeah, I'll give him that. But he also stunk the bed against Northwestern. He also stunk the bed against Indiana. Stunk the bed. So, when you look at the top quarterback you want to put your franchise around, you don't want to just throw it away for a guy who's inconsistent in college. Deshaun Watson was the man in college, but people passed on him still, which was dumb because the Jets were one of those people. But, Trevor Lawrence, the reason why I love him so much because he dominates everybody. So when he comes into these quarterbacks, they're going to be great. We don't even know what they're going to be, right? And I understand what you're saying. If the Jets pass on
what
him,
Sam Darnold is right now.
My point is that you don't know what Sam Darnold could be if he had a better team. Like we keep saying, if he goes to the Colts, he'll play a lot better. Why? So that's the point. If he goes to a team that has players on it, he'll play a lot better. We keep saying that. He goes to the Steelers, goes on a team with players on it.
What's Sam Darnold's ceiling? What's his ceiling?
I mean, his ceiling.
What's his ceiling? Because Dan sure ain't Andrew Luck that everyone was saying. So what's his ceiling?
I mean, a middle of the tier quarterback.
That's what you're going to sign to long-term deals for.
So my point is, if you look at Zach Wilson or Fields, are they going to be better than that?
That's what you would think if you're drafting them at 2.
Well, you don't know. You have no clue.
Of course, no one knows. But that's the whole point.
My point is that if you either trade back and more players, is there a better chance that those other players that you pick will be better for your team, organization, to help no matter who the quarterback is, you'll win games.
That's the same Jamal Adams. That's the same thing as the Jamal Adams. We selected Jamal Adams because he was going to be the better player than Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes.
No, but I'm saying you have more picks to draft more players to become stars.
How many picks do the Jets want? They have over 10.
Do you see this roster?
They have over 10.
Do you see how horrible this roster is?
They literally have $60 million in cap space and over 10 draft picks. You're not drafting 15 players. You physically can't. Physically can't.
First off, do you see how horrible this roster is?
Yeah, it is horrible.
So you have to have an overhaul change.
But there's one major one, and it's at the quarterback spot. So you could use one of those picks to get a quarterback.
All I'm saying is that so let's just say they get Zach Wilson. Stinks to bed.
In his first year, yeah, you restart the cycle.
I'm just saying.
You just got a new.
Let's just say he's worse than Sam Darnold by year 2. And Sam Darnold goes to another team. We trade him to another team, and he plays better.
And plays what? As the 18th best quarterback in the league?
He plays better than what Zach Wilson is.
After his first year. After his first year, and Sam's the 18th quarterback.
What's the whole point of us getting rid of him, right? And because the whole general idea was that if he was on a better team, he would have to rely less on Sam and just rely on the team to carry. He would be what we call in our fan sports quarterback rating. He wouldn't be the pilot. He'd be like a passenger. He'd be like a guy that the team would carry him.
Why you don't sign a long-term quarterback for that?
He's not be paying much at all.
You need to sign him after his 5th year, and every quarterback who goes on a long-term deal gets at least, especially now with the cap keep going up, it's going to be at least 30. So you're going to pay Sam 30 plus to be a passenger? That's the point. Is if you think Zach Wilson has a higher ceiling than Sam, you need to take him. You need to take him because you restart the cycle.
All I do know
under a rookie deal. Sam's going into year 4, so you have to pick up his 5th-year option. At least you start the cycle over with Zach Wilson. That's the point.
All I do know is that if you take that pick and you can get the best lineman available or the best wide receiver available, when the second pick that you take from Seattle's you ain't going to get any of those type of players. You ain't getting that. You ain't going to get that top level of talent.
No, but you might get the most important position.
Yeah, but my point is you have to equate whether Zach Wilson's talent is going to be more than the top wide receivers.
No, don't do that because that's the same thing as Jamal Adams and Leonard Williams and all that. It's does he compare to Sam Darnold? That's what the comparison is. It can't be does he compare to Devontae Smith because he probably doesn't in his first year compared to Devontae Smith. But is he going to be better than Sam by the year 3? That we saw from Sam Darnold, is Zach Wilson going to be better in that year 3 than Sam Darnold? Because if the answer is yes, you have to take him.
But it's a bigger gamble.
Of course it is.
Than it is to
but it's
keep
a greater
Sam
success. If you get a better quarterback, you'll have longer-term success. So it is the bigger gamble, but you'll also have longer-term success if Zach Wilson is better than Sam Darnold.
And the other thing is, when you talk about you have to pay Sam in 2 years. Right.
No, you're going to pay him something in the 5th-year option.
Yeah, but so the number you're paying there, right? Let's just say you take the top receiver, right? You have that guy on a rookie deal for several years versus paying a top receiver in the free agency market. Let's see the number hit compared to 2.
Yeah, but again, you don't need to. I think the Jets should because you don't win an award. You don't get a better playoff spot.
No,
hoarding cap space.
I'm not saying that.
Okay, so the Jets need to use it. Okay, number 1. Okay, number 2, you don't have to take a top receiver in the top 10 to be successful. You look at the top receivers, you can get them in the 2nd round, you can get them in the 3rd round. But the numbers tell you, most of the time, you get a good quarterback, it's in the 1st round. It's got to be in the 1st round. That's what I know. So, again, just because Sam Darnold's a great guy, and yeah, there's sparks of talent, he also hasn't thrown 20 touchdowns yet in his career. He had the lowest passer rating this season. And he's one of the lowest in a clean pocket. So he needs to have not just an upgrade, he needs to have a huge upgrade from this past season if they were to keep Sam Darnold. It's got to be huge. And yeah, okay, if he's the 16th best quarterback next year in year 4, by year 5, he's got to improve again because you're not signing a long-term Sam Darnold at 30 plus for him to be the 16th best quarterback in the league. 16 to 20.
All I'm saying is this. If he goes to a team like the Saints or to the Colts or to the Steelers and he plays well,
What's well?
Middle of the pack or up, and then all of a sudden it's like, wow, the Jets are idiots for trading Sam Darnold. And Zach Wilson doesn't even meet that, then we look like morons.
He might not meet that the first year. He might not.
Or it's year 2, and we look like
Sam
morons.
hasn't met it in 4 years.
But my point is that you put him on a team instead of the Jets are a horrifying team. We have done a lot of talent.
The point is to get Zach Wilson because your team needs more than 1 year. Keeping Sam Darnold, you're not going to become the Saints next year. So that's the point. So, if you're not going to become the Saints next year and have Sam Darnold on your roster, on a Saints-loaded roster, then you might as well restart the cycle.
Yeah, you'll fall into the same trap we did with Sam Darnold. We had a horrifying team for the first, 3 years. We had no one. And all of a sudden now he's broken goods.
So how much of the blame goes to Sam? If you were to give a percentage blame of how crappy he's played,
What is the percentage for this past season?
I'll give him. Well, what are the categories we given? Well, who's involved?
No, you cut the pie however you want to cut it for this past season, being 32nd 2 years in a row.
I give it 33%. I'll give the coaching the other 33, and the team another 33.
Okay, so the coaching's now changed. 33% of it goes to Sam Darnold, right? 33%.
Yeah, I mean, what did I say last time?
I'm saying so 1/3 of the issue is Sam.
Yes, that he makes
So
mistakes.
that's not
going to
change. Is that going to change in year 4?
But when you look at the 66% of his problems come from people outside of him himself.
Oh boy, I mean
The team being horrible.
all you can go is up. But from 32 to 28 or to 25, that's not something to strive for. I think you would hope to strive for something greater. That's the
whole point is if the Jets, if Same Darnold is laying another egg,
what's another? If you can't be worse than 32.
If he's in the same ballpark as still being 31, 30, or 29, the Jets are still going to have a top pick.
Yeah, on a lousier quarterback class. That's the problem. That's the problem. Let's go to the other elephant in the room because we spent a lot of time on this Sam Darnold, and I'm still hearing about the whole Sam Darnold argument. This will get thrown out right away, all the Sam Darnold stands. If Deshaun Watson becomes available. Okay, so, By the way, I don't officially, because Deshaun Watson, he's obviously not a bottom 16 quarterback. He's obviously a top 10. But the Houston Texans, as of this morning, are interviewing Eric Bieniemy. So how much of this is a back and forth for Deshaun Watson to impose his will on this franchise? Because it sounds like the Texans are caving a little bit, and Eric Bieniemy is getting an interview. If things continue to go south, because everyone is now reporting that Deshaun Watson has played his last game as a Texan, he doesn't want to be part of the Texans anymore. I don't know if I fully buy into it, and now everyone keeps filtering in the Jet stuff. He wanted the Texans to interview Saleh. They did not. Guess who hired Saleh? The Jets. Okay? Who has a bunch of draft picks? Obviously, they want to continue to keep hoarding them, apparently. But who has a boatload of draft picks? The Jets. They could probably propose one of the better deals for the Texans to take than any team in the league. The problem I have with this is, obviously, if Deshaun Watson becomes available, the Jets, and he wants to go to the Jets are one of his options. The Jets should take all those draft picks,
but when did it
bundle it up.
He was one of the Jets for one of those options.
No, I'm saying if he is.
Oh, yeah.
If Deshaun puts on Jets on one of his, I will waive my no trade clause because he has a no trade clause, so he has to accept. He has to okay any deal. So if that Jets are one of them on the list, you take all those draft picks and you send them because there is not enough first round picks, people, that will match Deshaun Watson. There is not. Because the odds of you taking any of those first round picks and they become Deshaun Watson is practically zero. Practically. Because Deshaun Watson is a top 5 quarterback. You can argue top 5. He's definitely top 10. I mean, he has no offensive line. Defense is a sieve. I mean, every team who plays the Texans can move the ball. Everybody. The team was terrible, and he put up career numbers, Mars.
Yep.
Career numbers. I'm sorry, the Jet fans who, I get it. Listen, your team stinks. You have a lot of draft picks. You need to use them. I get it. But there is not enough first-round picks for Deshaun Watson. It's going to take at least 3. And guess what? The Jets have 2 this year, 2 next year. I think, don't they have 2 the following year? Maybe that one year they only have 1. But they have 2 straight years of 2 first-round picks. Come on. You also have multiple mid-round picks, so you're not going to give up all of them, but you're going to give up some. You'll still have draft capital. Not great draft capital.
You'll give up 2 firsts this year, a first next year, a second this year, and then you'll get...
And probably a third next year.
Yeah, whatever.
I mean, come on. Yeah. That's a no-brainer if that comes to fruition.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm full on the board for getting Deshaun Watson. And the whole argument was that, if Deshaun decides he doesn't want to come to the Jets because he doesn't like the organization, it kind of goes along with my first argument, is that this team in general sucks ass. So if your team was more competent surrounding not just Sam Darnold, because he's looking at it like, well, if I was the missing piece of this team, then I would definitely... if he felt more confident about it, because we don't know what his options are. But most likely, Vegas even says Miami's his top choice.
Which
because Miami, like all of a sudden, Tua looks like hot garbage. And the team itself is a good team. So that's the whole argument I was kind of making before about Sam Darnold, is that does Tua look like Sam Darnold did? Like where the stats, like he can't even throw, sometimes he doesn't even throw 200 yards in a game, but the team carried Tua. Literally, they had a dual quarterback with Fitzpatrick and Tua.
One of them, the Jets, were not a good team. So no one cared if Sam Darnold, when he struggled. The Dolphins were a playoff team, and they had a rookie have to go through rookie pains. So I don't think it's that fair. I'm not saying Tua is going to be the next great quarterback, but what I'm saying is it's such a different dynamic because the Miami fans and the Miami organization wanted to make a run at the playoffs, and Tua has to go through growing pains because it came from the top that Tua had to step in. Because if it was about winning, Fitzpatrick would have stayed the starter.
But the whole point is that you look at that team, right? The team carried a crappy quarterback to the playoffs, carried him, right? And that's the whole thing, and that's why Deshaun Watson's like, well, I'm the missing piece why this team's not a Super Bowl team. If the Jets had a team around their quarterback, then even if that Tua plays crappy, or Sam plays crappy, they would still be able to carry him to victories. Now, all Sam has to do is not throw a pick every time he's on the field, and they'll win the game. Just like how Mark Sanchez and the Jets were the same thing back when he was the quarterback. Now, granted, it hid how horrible he was when the Jets defense was rocking, but that's the whole point. The team carried the mediocre play of quarterbacks to victory.
Why do you want that?
No, but my point is that, do I think Sam Darnold is Mark Sanchez? No, I don't. Right? He's not to that level of crap. But that's the point. But now I look at Deshaun Watson because we'll talk about him. Right? Yes, you trade this in an instant. Now, I know Jets fans are like, well, listen, Joe Douglas, he had a plan for having Sam Darnold as a guy. You don't know his plan. It's not like you're in the room with Joe Douglas as he writes up his plan on the calendar, and you don't know his plan. He could be lying through his teeth, and he could just select Zach Wilson, second overall, and then we all look like a bunch of idiots because we're all saying, well, Sam's probably going to be – we don't know, right? And 90% of the time, GMs, owners, they gaslight 90 of all their conversations about the draft because they don't want someone to have the upper edge over them, right? So the reality is, we don't know what's going to happen, but one thing I do know is that if Deshaun Watson says, I would like to go to the Jets would be one of my options, the Jets have the best advantage to get him because the Texans want to benefit from this deal too. They don't want to just hand Deshaun Watson to some team that gets nothing.
Now, Miami has capital. Okay,
they have, but that's the point. They have the Texans capital, so it's like you're going to get back your picks. The Jets have more picks than Miami does.
They do.
So we could give you more than what Miami can.
If both are even, if Deshaun is open to both, I think the Jets
should have the advantage.
I don't think they will have the advantage because you made a good point about this. Okay, Deshaun Watson wants to win. Which team gives him the better opportunity to do that? Miami does. So. Worst case scenario for Jet fans, you either want him to go to the Jets or that a deal with Miami falls through. Okay? Because you don't want him in the AFC East. Okay, you already have Josh Allen. Okay? And now you're going to add Deshaun Watson, who I can argue is a better quarterback. And I don't think it's that big of an argument. I think he's a better quarterback right now than Josh Allen. So you just got rid of Tom Brady and now you're going to have Deshaun Watson enter? Of course you don't want that. So even those people who are like the Sam, no, we want to keep Sam and keep our draft picks. We don't want to make the move for Deshaun. You darn sure don't want, if you don't make the move, you darn sure don't want your rival to make the move, which is the Miami Dolphins. So if you don't want to make the move, you better hope the Texans fix the damage that is going on.
The whole point that they're now interviewing the enemy tells you that there's a better chance he doesn't leave than not. Because it tells you that Deshaun Watson's scheme of making the Texans cave is kind of working because at first, the enemy was like, I only want any part of the Texans organization, and they weren't even interviewing him. And now, as it's getting hotter and hotter in the room, the enemy's going to get an interview. So, good for you, Deshaun. Hopefully, if you don't come to the Jets, you just stay in Houston because having you to go to Miami, or better yet, really worse yet, the Patriots, who are the second highest on Vegas' odds of landing of Deshaun Watson, and the Jets are the third. Just the fact that AFC East were all contenders, top contenders to get Deshaun Watson is just bananas. Right? It's kind of crazy.
But I think the Patriots will fall into the same. Now, granted, you'll have the best coach, right? That's what Deshaun would be
signing.
But if you look at the Patriots, the quarterback is really the missing piece. And Cam Newton. Really,
yeah, they also weapons-wise. The weapons. They were really well coached. They have a good defense. Even I know Cam was not good, but if you look who Cam was throwing it to, too, like who was he throwing to? And they were nobodies out there. I mean, that might be the worst wide receiver core in football. I know the Jets are not great, but like that what the Patriots assembled as the wideout crew might have been the worst in football. So Deshaun's going to have to, they're still going to have to make mass changes there. So I really believe, he would have to okay the Patriots just based on Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
Like that's what really would be.
My only hope as a Jets fan is that the fact that Robert Saleh is the coach and he liked Robert Saleh was the only thing that's giving me hope. Because, when you look at Jets' situation, right? And I know everybody was saying, why would you ever want to go coach for the Jets or play for the Jets? The Jets situation right now is actually brighter than what it could have been a few years ago, right? The fact that the Jets have a lot of draft capital, right? Now they have to land on the draft. That's one thing.
Yes.
They have probably the top 3 or 4 in cap space. That's another bright. They have to actually spend the money, right?
Yes.
That's another thing. And I think Joe Douglas is somebody I've seen actually spend money before the previous GMs never did, right? And the defense is actually not as bad as what people thought it was going to be when Jamal Adams left. Now, granted, the offense is still horrible, but I also have to look at it saying, is it Adam Gaze's fault completely, or is it really the offense is just that bad? I think it's a mix of both, that the offense is still bad, but Adam Gaze just made it worse than what it could have been. Because I look at the offense, you have the offensive line played better last year, but we're still the worst offense. We had a better offensive line this year than last year. We still were worst.
Yeah.
Wide receiver core, better than last year, but we're still worst. So is it because Adam Gase is just that bad?
Well, I think it's a mix. That's why I'm down on Sam right now. Yeah, I think Adam Gase got fired, and he deserved to be fired because he was terrible. And I think a little more issue is on Sam. You just mentioned that how do you have a better wideout core and a better offensive line core and still be 32nd? So that's the problem. That's my issue. But I don't want to keep going into Sam Darnold and Adam Gase because Adam Gase is done and Sam is a to be determined. But Deshaun Watson, like we keep saying, there is no you don't. The whole point of the draft is it's a gamble, right? And you want as many pieces to make a correct gamble, correct hit. What Watson is, so you're giving up a gamble for a sure thing.
Yes.
That's why I don't understand what people think about, and it's the most important position. Like, if you were trading all these first-round picks, like what Seattle did for Jamal Adams, now you can question, was this worth it?
Yeah.
No. Or a wide receiver. Was this worth it for a wideout? But it's for a quarterback.
It's for an elite quarterback, not just a quarterback. It's like, you trade for Nick Foles. You know what I mean? Like, that, you question yourself because he's not even starting. You're
talking about Deshaun Watson.
Deshaun Watson, a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, and I've seen him really carry the Texans to victories, right? That's the thing.
The only thing that could make the deal, if a deal was ever done, is if he suddenly became injury prone.
Yeah.
That would be the only thing, because if he plays, you're going to get high-level quarterback play.
Yep.
That I know. And usually when you have high quarterback level play, your team's going to be competitive. That I know. So we got to move on because we talked a lot of football. We got to go to the Nets and basketball. Well, right before, I think the worst news in football was that the Chargers hired the defensive coordinator for the Rams and not Jason Garrett. That, I believe, was the worst news of the day.
Yeah, unfortunately,
Garrett,
he's coming back.
I thought he was a top choice for the Chargers, and he's still got to say the Eagles. If the Eagles were to hire Jason Garrett, it would be so devastating for the NFC East. So I'm praying that for the Eagles organization, I know they're probably listening, don't hire Jason Garrett. We need him back. Don't swipe him up from us.
Did they even interview him?
No, I don't think so.
So, I'm sorry, Giants fans,
we just have to stick with the... But what I got to tell you, though, if they bring in Jason Garrett back, they obviously have to hire a passing game coordinator. They need to change the passing concepts.
Running concept. You need to have an exorcism.
Running concept. Well, no, that's a whole separate issue, and I don't want to go into Evan Ingram until a later date because my blood pressure is already messed up. So, I just want them to hire a passing game coordinator because they need to fix this passing offense. They really do. So, if Garrett's coming back, then we need to enhance this offensive scheme. And that's what they need to do. So let's move to basketball, Mars. The Nets obviously making the big trade. All right, getting the big three assembled, getting James Harden in a 4-team deal between the Nets, Rockets, Pacers, and Cavs, Mars. And I don't know how anyone has any other opinion than that the Nets won the deal.
Yes.
Because you got James Harden. Okay? But let's just go over the trade, Mars. The Nets get James Harden. I'm not going to go over what every team got, but I'll just give you what the Nets got and gave up. Okay? The Nets got James Harden. They gave up Chris LeVert, Jarrett Allen, Taurean Prince, 3 first-rounders, and 4 first-round pick swaps. So anyone who doesn't know, that means that the team who has a pick swap has an option when the draft comes around that they could swap first-rounders with that team. So a lot of draft capital. Gave up LeVert and Allen, but you were still able to keep Joe Harris. You were still able to keep Dinwiddie. And you assembled the big three. Kyrie, Kevin Durant. Now, Kyrie, obviously, we're waiting for him to just come back to basketball. But let's just assume he does. You have James Harden and Kevin Durant. 2 of the top, if you were to bring out the 6 best offensive players in basketball, you have 2 of them. You have arguably 2 of the best 6 players in basketball. And now Kyrie is top 15, right? We can both say that?
Yeah.
So you have 3 of the top 15 players in the league on one team. You won the deal. Like, that's a win.
This is starting to look like the Miami Heat team that LeBron had formed a few years ago. And I think when you look at, I mean, just compare. You know, Kevin Durant's clearly, like,
top
5 player. And it's crazy because being on a major injury, like an Achilles injury, and still playing this damn good is just scary. I mean, that was the one thing I said I was nervous about for the Nets, was that if he had any decay, it won't be as good. But clearly, so far, he has. I mean, I know he's been taking games off more recently than
that's going to happen.
So that's one thing. But, like, when he plays, like, he's, like, averaging 30, 31 points a game. You know what I mean? Like, that's what he's averaging. And now you just add James Harden, who's a clown, but he's still plays very, very well.
Yes.
And when Kyrie actually shows up to the game, he's been playing pretty well, too. I mean, he's been averaging 27 a game. I mean, like, this is just...
Offensively,
you have. I mean, everyone else around them really doesn't do much. I mean, Joe Harris does
but
a
he's
little
a 3-point threat.
Yeah, no, he's
right?
like, he has a very high
Dinwiddie
3 percentage.
is a good when he comes back, though. I don't even know, will he come back with a partially torn ACL? But if he ever does, you know, that's somebody off the bench who can lead a second unit. But you're never really going to have that, right? I mean, you're going to have at least one of Kyrie, Kevin Durant, or James Harden on the court at all times.
Yeah, and
so, like, I get, like, do we have a second unit? Do we have a bench? Like, you didn't give up enough of your bench to worry that much. And you can sign dudes to act as what the Miami Heat did. Pretty much placeholders. Play defense, hit some threes.
Until those guys get back on the court.
Yeah.
I mean, that's and look, it worked for Miami. It'll work for the Nets. My thing is that the Nets have just elevated themselves into being a championship contender with adding James Harden. And then, you know, it's just scary to me about what they could be. I just think that the whole Kyrie Irving thing is just so chaotic that
it's weird.
It's just weird. Like, you know, like, what's going on
through his head? You know.
Yeah, and I mean, you knew he was a little nuts beforehand, but, like, the fact that he just went MIA and no one knows where he is,
and now they're like talking and trying to bring him back and coming. Now he's getting a big fine, and it's just like you feel like the Nets have built something of a championship, and now you're having this kind of distraction. And this is what, you know, I just don't understand it. I know and I don't want to be too unfair because we don't know what's going on.
Yeah, we don't.
So I don't want to be that unfair, but it is strange. Very strange. And, like, you know, it can't be a great feeling between Kevin Durant and Kyrie. It can't be. I mean, Kevin Durant's out there playing.
Yep.
And, like, he came here because you wanted to assemble this group. So, like, yeah, they got James Harden, and it's even with those 2, I think they'll be a force.
Yeah.
But, like, you want all 3 to be a top contending team, a championship, beating the Lakers, beating the Clippers, beating whoever's in the West, because I think they're the clear favorite in the East. When all 3 of them, are they playing and they're healthy, they are the favorite, in my opinion. There's no better group. If this is basketball, if you have 3 of the best 5 players on the court, or 2 of the 5 best players on the court at one time, you're probably going to win.
Yep.
Especially in a series. So that's why I think this was a huge get for the Nets. I mean, you saw James Harden. By the way, it makes me laugh. The kind of you're seeing the videos of him being, in workout in Rockets gear, and he looks like he's like gained 100 pounds, right? And he looks like he's wearing a fat suit, and then they like enhance the photo of him in Brooklyn, and he's thin. Like I watched him play the other night.
Yeah, he
looks
still,
a little pudgy.
Yeah, he's
right?
Listen,
he definitely looks a little overweight.
I mean, listen, it gets me every time whenever they replace him with Mark Henry. But it gets me every
the
time.
Internet stays undefeated.
Yeah, but no, yeah, he's just. I think it's like a little too over the top. I think he definitely gained pounds. I mean, he's been hitting the strip clubs like literally it feels like every night. And
he's definitely hitting the buffet.
Yeah, he's in the buffet line every night, and But
he still dropped the trip though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, does that infringe on what he can do on the court? No, it doesn't. And which is kind of crazy. I mean, us being ourselves, if we were to gain like a lot of weight,
I would be able to get off the couch.
Show up and just play basketball, drop a triple double or something.
I'd be
like
dying.
It's nothing. Yeah, like come on. Like, that's just crazy. That's just how good James Harden is.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, he's always been weird. Like, he's been a weird dude his entire career. But he can play. Now the question is going to be, will he play when they get to playoffs? Will he play at the same level? Because the same thing happened when he was in Houston.
Well, I think that's a great point. But the difference is you had a decaying Russell Westbrook and a decaying Chris Paul. Now Chris Paul played well, but James Harden had to take that role as the guy, the killer. You have one.
Yeah, Durant is the
you
kid,
have that guy
assassin
on your team.
You just now
right. So can you supplement Kevin Durant in the playoffs? And that's why I think this is deadly. If James Harden was the man or Kyrie Irving was the man, I'd be a little nervous. But Kevin Durant is the man. And those two guys supplementing him, I mean, come on. That's where I think this is where it's really agree. Deadly. But I agree. I think health. I continue to hammer. Health is going to be huge. And defensively, they've played better defensively than I thought they would.
And I think
that's the lapses too.
It's early.
Yes, it's early. So we'll see defensively where they're at too, because if they could play solid defense, and James Harden has shown that he can if he wants. Kyrie, not so much. Kevin Durant, could play defense when he wants to. Even with the injury, we're seeing that this guy could still play defense, which just tells me how amazing that guy is. It hurts. As a Knicks fan, I'm not going to lie.
It's painful. Because we were close, and I listen. Everyone's gonna make fun of us. Everyone keeps saying, "Oh, he didn't want to go to the Knicks." I believe Kevin Durant wanted to go to the Knicks.
I think the injury really screwed that up. And
Kyrie was like, "I want to go to Brooklyn."
Yeah,
and he didn't want to go to the Knicks by himself.
No.
Right? So he's like, I'll go with you. I think that's the thing. Kevin Durant caved and said, "I'll go to Brooklyn." Kyrie was not going to cave.
And the Knicks might have even wanted to do a Kevin Durant, Kemba Walker, and KD said he'd rather play with Kyrie.
Yep. But you know what? At the end of the day, I'm looking at it. How do you feel about that right now, KD? Would you rather have wanted to play with Kyrie?
Well, now they got James. So.
No, but that's I'm saying, like, Kyrie's off the loose. Imagine you had Kemba Walker, James Harden.
Yeah, Kemba though gets hurt. He got hurt against the Knicks the other night. So I don't know.
Listen,
I just know it hurts.
I'm just blowing smoke or anything here, but obviously, like Kevin Durant, you made the right choice. You were going to form a super team. If you win a championship in Brooklyn, you're already a Hall of Famer. But it's just imagine you do that. That's historic. Not a lot of people can say they did that.
No.
So yeah, I mean, look, as a Knicks fan, it's painful, and we'll talk about right now. We'll talk about the Knicks, but the Knicks winning games would kind of garner more superstars that want to come play, right? And there's one guy that I'm looking at right now that if the Knicks play well enough, maybe, just maybe, he would want to come, and that's Jimmy Butler. And the reason why I say it, I know you're like, well, he loves in Miami. Well, he has one of his famous favorite coaches in Thibodeau in New York. Yeah. And the Knicks are good enough.
Well, I was thinking Jimmy Butler, that's interesting. I just feel like Miami's just too good of a culture to leave, even though I know which is the Thibodeau and all that. Mine would be a trade for Bradley Beal. That's what mine would be, because he's on a terrifying team. He's having career numbers right now, and at some point he's going to John Wall this thing too and say, get me out of here. I want to get out. And the Knicks, that's when they're going to have to. By the way, you're not putting together Dennis Smith Jr. and a first for can I just tell you, Knicks fan, you're going to have to trade a Mitchell Robinson, even an Emmanuel Quickly. and possibly, like you're going to have to trade your capital,
Yeah.
your young capital.
But that's the point.
To make a deal like that. So let's go to the Knicks, Mars, because I'm already in pain, right, from seeing what the Nets do. And you know what? This whole battle between – I don't really focus on the Nets. The only thing that hurts to me is seeing Kevin Durant on the Nets. That's what hurts. Not that the Nets are being successful, because it never bothered me seeing the Nets successful. Never did. I mean, there wasn't much time that they were, but it never bothered me that they are successful or that they're winning games or that they're competitive. What bothers me was the whole Kevin Durant's going to the Knicks and then he goes to the Nets. That's the part that always bothered me because everyone was saying it. Everybody was saying it, and it didn't happen. That's what hurts. They could have done the same thing and went to Philadelphia, and it would hurt just as much. Right? So the whole Nets thing, that doesn't bother me. But what does bother me is this. James Harden gets traded to the Nets. I'm watching James Harden and Kevin Durant, and then I go to watch the Knicks. And guess who's still starting? Payton. Okay? And Bullock. That's what I'm watching. Okay? And I get to watch a rookie point guard for 3 straight games now in Emmanuel Quickley. Not only just be efficient, but show a different dynamic. Okay? Passing, hitting floaters. So he wasn't just shooting. I mean, he was playing at a high level. 3 straight games, Mars. Okay, and the Knicks were on a long 5-game losing streak. They snapped it against Boston. They killed Boston. Okay, but Boston, Kemba got hurt. Jason Tatum wasn't playing. So, whatever, we'll take it. I mean, I'd take any win. But I just don't understand people's argument for not giving Quickley the start. I don't understand it, Mars.
No, I don't.
It doesn't make any sense. And I was losing my mind, right? A few weeks ago on the podcast in preseason when I said Quickley should start. And it rings even more truer now. I was losing my mind weeks ago. And Quickley didn't even step on a regular season game yet. Because, and this is the part that is so mind-numbing to me, what is the downfall to starting Quickley? I hear people actually say, well, if he struggles, then we have to bench him and that will hurt his confidence. My God, my good Lord, if Quickley starts, the pro is that he is head and shoulders, he keeps playing the way he's playing, and he's head and shoulders better than Payton. Head and shoulders. And if he's head and shoulders better and he plays around 30 minutes a game, Mars, we have a better chance of winning. Okay? Because he's not. Payton plays more minutes than Quickley.
Yes.
Okay? Because he's in the starting group. And I even heard Frazier say that. It makes me cringe. It's not who starts that's important, it's who finishes. Okay, Quickley's doing neither. Okay? He's doing neither. So yeah, that one game that he played the fourth quarter instead of Payton, it's because Payton got smacked in the face. People keep forgetting about that. He was checked in, he got wailed, and they took him out and put Quickley back in. Because Payton got wailed. Not because Quickley, he earned that fourth quarter, coach. See, that's what I'm saying. It's not about how you start, it's how you finish. BS.
When you look at the two, right? Payton has 11 more minutes than Quickley averaging, right? And only 3 more points more averaging.
Yeah,
11 minutes.
Check the shooting percentage.
I know.
Because that's the one that really gets your.
I know.
Look at his 3-point. Look at 3-point. And it's this is not a war on Payton. Okay? This is a war on refusing to go basketball into the new generation, Mars. That's the problem. That's the problem I have. Because I go back to the pros and cons, Mars. That's the pro, right? That he's head and shoulders better than Payton. The con is this. He shoots terribly, okay? He shoots under, low 40% from the field, 32% from 3. Guess what numbers those are, Mars?
What?
Those are Payton's numbers. So if he plays terrible, that everyone's saying, he's putting up the same productivity as Payton. That's what everyone's worried about? We haven't benched Payton yet for putting up those numbers. Not yet. Not yet. But I'm supposed to be worried about Quickley putting up those numbers and him getting put back into the bench by the coaching staff? Are we losing? What are we talking about? If he plays like that and we stink, guess what? Quickly was the first round pick that we've spent capital on, and he's supposed to be our guy of the future.
Yeah,
not some mercenary vet.
I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, when you comparing them and you're saying, well, he's only 3 points more average than Quickly, so he's doing that averaging more points a game. If you swap out the minutes, right, and Alfred Payton's the second string and part of the second unit, and Quickly's a starter, he'll average more points. And he only had like a few games where he just didn't play well, and that's why his points total is down. But whenever he, majority of the time, plays, he's head and shoulders better than Peyton. And I think that the biggest downfall is the fact that, like you just mentioned, that, Quickly is actually for the future, right? And let's just say that you become an intellect and you say, we want to try to garner assets to trade for an all-star. Alfred Payton is not a guy that you put.
He has no trade clause.
There's no trade clause, which is dumb by itself. But
because you re-signed him, it's automatic. I found that out because they re-signed him to a second 1-year deal. It comes automatic,
and that's the dumbest thing is that you're not going to trade Alfred Payton for anything, right? Quickly could possibly be a guy that you trade for an all-star because he's an asset, right? He's a young guy. He's been playing pretty well. But you put him on the court more than not because you want to develop the asset so that either way, whether he becomes a starter for you or he becomes a trade asset, he is getting developed, right? And that was my fear with Thibodeau because I felt like if Kenny Atkinson was the guy, he wouldn't even blink twice to not put those young guys in. But I'm not even going into that. Thibodeau is the dude, and there's something off about this concept where they don't like to start rookies. That's what it feels like.
It feels like a Knicks franchise problem.
It could be that, but the only rookie that we ever started was RJ Barrett, right? He's the only guy.
Well, I would pray when you get him third overall.
Toppin's not starting. I know he was hurt. I know he was hurt. And Randall's playing well, so I'll skate by with Toppin, right? Not starting because Randall's just playing the best player we have on the roster right now. But the point is that we're not getting our young guys in, ever. And it's
not
mind-boggling.
They're not getting in, man.
They're barely getting. They're averaging minutes.
The vets are out or playing more than some of the other guys. RJ and Mitchell Robinson aside,
right? Because Bullock, 29 minutes a game, averaging 8.3 points a game.
29.
What's the point of putting Bullock in for that
over
long?
Knox?
Or over Knox? Knox has 7 less minutes and 0.5 less points. What's the point of Knox not getting? And Knox is not playing a groundbreaking or anything.
No.
But when you're on the same level or nearly identical, and one guy's getting more minutes than you, and
why would you not play the young guy?
What's the point?
If they're at the same level, you go with the young guy on a team like the Knicks. Bullock and Payton are the biggest albatross. Those two are the biggest albatross on this Thibs rotation because they're not doing anything well. They're not shooting well, Mars. They're not defending well, and they're not hitting three-pointers well. What are they doing well? That's the problem. What are they doing well? Knox, he's not great defensively. No. But you know what he's doing well? He's hitting the three this year.
Yep.
So why is he not playing more? Quickly is actually doing multiple things well. Multiple, Mars. Multiple, and he still is not starting. But I was telling, just they want to see a few more games with Quickly, putting up these kind of numbers, and then they'll slip them in. That better be the case. Because I'm sorry if Alfred Payton Mars has this one in a blue moon efficient game where he shoots over 50% and he's got 15 points. If he solidifies the starting role on those one rando games that he has because of, he puts up efficient numbers that is the most, it's a hallucination. But he's going to do it, Mars. He's going to do it soon. If that solidifies him for the next few weeks, I'm going to lose my mind because I'm tired. I have to watch multiple New York sports, and I have to watch the Nets playing for a championship, and I got to watch the Knicks put out Payton for 30 freaking minutes and Bullock for 30 freaking minutes. Burks can't get here fast enough. Someone's got to replace his ankle and get him in because he's got to go into the starting lineup for Bullock. And God forbid Frank is not dead. He needs to come in and put Bullock on the bench. Or put freaking Payton on the bench for life. Because Quickly needs to start. I don't even want to see him in the second unit.
No.
Because why are we stuck in these mercenary vets?
No, it really doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And we can harp around this all day because, Adam, you could tell we're Knicks fans and we've been watching garbage for literally our entire lives and for the most part. And it's just obnoxious because it's almost like it's a Knicks tradition to not play young players. When everyone else in the NBA, that's all they're doing. They're just playing. They're drafting young, playing them young. And if they stink, they let them stink and let them work through their kinks.
The Knicks, if they stink, then they find someone to replace them.
The Knicks are sitting there like, we just don't want to embarrass the kid. Embarrass the kid?
Years,
what they think that
they've been doing this for years.
Yeah,
and what's funny though? This is what I've been harping on. We have been harping on for the last 2 years that we've been doing this show. That's all I wanted.
Yes.
The Knicks to just give Frank a chance at the point guard spot. Let him sink or swim. Give him a chance. Now quickly comes in, actually playing really well for a rookie.
Yes.
And we still won't do it. Oh, everyone was crying, well, Frank, he's not good enough. He's not doing it in practice. And
Frank.
what is quickly? Then what's the explanation for all you freaking fans out there for the Knicks who have been hammering constantly about, well, he's not a point guard, this or that. You said quickly wasn't a point guard, right? That was the big talk. All the draft experts, he's a combo guard. Well, he comes in at point guard, outperforming Payton daily. Okay? And yet, still. And
Frank,
finish. It's all about finish.
I'd rather play Austin Rivers as the point guard than Alfred Payton. I'd rather do anything.
And he's been, by the way,
Julius Randle play point forward than play Alfred Payton as the point guard because this is just dumb.
It is dumb.
It's just dumb.
I mean, Bullock is shooting terribly from three. Payton, we already know about the 3-point from Payton. Okay? RJ Barrett, not a 3-point shooter. Mitchell Robinson hasn't taken a jump shot yet this season. Randall's not a sharpshooter. I just named you the starting 5, and not one of them is a 3-point threat. Not one. Is this the 1980s? Is this the 1980s? That's literally, that's the part that drives me insane. Insane.
Yep.
And because Payton, by the way, plays the most overrated defense. People Payton's a defensive guard.
Oh, stop.
It's the most overrated defense that I can imagine. Okay? So that was the whole point. Frank can't shoot, but Frank has a nice form, and if he could develop his shot, I thought he could be a guy that you could play at that to open the floor because you had a Julius Randle. You had an RJ Barrett who can control the ball and can play make. That's who I thought. But quickly, he's actually doing it. He's doing it. And I saw it in preseason, and I saw enough to say, give him the chance. And yet, now we got to see. I have to see multiple games of quickly doing this. But they throw us that nice bone, Mars. Quickly plays 21 minutes. Right? Just throw Frank the bone. Give him just 21 minutes while Payton plays 27. And we should all be good. We should all be good. But let's just leave it at that as the construction is getting even louder. I don't know if people in the video can hear it, but the construction is getting even louder outside. All right, Morris, I just want to end the show really quickly about the Yankees re-signing DJ LeMahieu. I mean, the big deal that the Mets made about Lindor, which made me really happy. But I want to just talk really quickly about the Yankees, DJ LeMahieu and Corey Kluber. Two big moves for the Yankees. One, to keep probably their best player at this moment, and two, to get another starter for the Yankees rotation. I mean, we keep saying this every year, but this feels like another do-or-die season for the Yankees, and I think it's off to a good start.
Yeah, no, listen, for the Yankees, they've been doing everything right for any New York team. So at the end of the day, I'm not gonna. They just need a win. That's their thing. They gotta win. I'm just tired of this non-winning that I see.
Absolutely. All right, everyone, that was our show. We want to appreciate everyone for tuning in. Again, with the construction going on around here, it's kind of thrown off our schedule. It's going to be like this for the next couple weeks, unfortunately. So we're going to try to produce a show each time, given the circumstances. But we appreciate everyone tuning in. I hope you guys had a great weekend. Enjoy, for those who have their day off, enjoy today on Martin Luther King Day. Give thanks to those who, given us this day and for the message that was being sent out during that time. But, again, be safe. Have, again, a sports-filled week, and we'll see you all very soon.